He died for our salvation. He died to protect Terra from the darkness of the arch-traitor Horus, so that humanity could live and thrive on against the old night. He died to give his blessed father, the father of the Empire itself, time to meet his blade with the neck of the betrayer. He died, he suffered, so you will all suffer as he did. For Sanguinius, for the Emperor, for mankind. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Blessed Yule, and Grand Saturnalia. And a great cheer for all those I left unwritten. Welcome back to this holiday episode of T-Girl Telepathica. Holidays to us are some of the best times of the year, making for grand family get-togethers where we see cousins we haven't seen in ages, eat feasts we usually don't get to partake in, or receive, and much more importantly, give gifts to each other. Across our planet, the abundance of festivals around this time of year match the cultures that live there, and in certain minds come to be the most important. Where humanity goes, the celebration of the Terran year's end goes with it, though the meaning may be slightly different culture to culture. This holds true even in the grim darkness of the far future, where the devil is real and he wants to sell you death sticks. In this horrifyingly bad time, the thing they celebrate is the death of Sanguinius, thanking him for allowing them to continue living through hell. But hey, at least they're not dead. Having said this, in order to truly know what Sanguinala is, we should know at least a little bit about Sanguinius, so let's take a very brief look at everybody's favorite angel. Sanguinius is one of the most visually striking Primarchs within the Imperium, having had definitely the most pronounced mutation among the Primarchs that we have actually seen. Like, yeah, Magnus was red even before his Cavalcado fuck-ups, but that's because he appears how he wants to, and he wanted to be quirky and unique or some shit. As for those who can't morph into literally whatever they want, Sanguinius' mutation is as extremely obvious as it is weirdly tame, in that he is a literal angel with those wings on his back. That mutation is as important as it is obvious as well, as having this mutation means his gene seed is mutated as well, and the sheer, gripping terror of what that means for him and his sons is a lot of what we see in his character over the development of the Horus Heresy and a little bit before. But the far more important mutation for today's video is the much less pronounced psionic mutation he had, in that he could see the future. Yeah, the Emperor's sons inherited a lot of his crazy abilities, and Sanguinius, along with the creature, both inherited slightly different variants of that one. And throughout Sangi Boy's space genocide adventure across the stars, it is often mentioned that he can see exactly how he will die, and that often plays into some of the most badass parts of the books. Until it doesn't. Essentially, the Horus home-wrecking comes to a head over Terra, where Big E and a bunch of Marines, Custodes, and Guardsmen, as well as Rogodorn and Sanguinius, all have to teleport up to Horus's flagship to end this once and for all. However, warp fuckery screws with this and ends up meaning everybody is split up and have to find their way around the ship alone, pretty much. And unfortunately, Sanguinius finds Horus first, and despite what he has seen, buys his father time to get there. So who do you think would win? A pretty demigod, or a demigod with the backing of 4 different gods, who can go blow to blow with the Emperor? Yeah, Sanguinius gets absolutely thrashed, to the point that when the Emperor does get there, he's begging for help on the floor, which in turn does completely shatter any feelings the Emperor might have about having to fight his undisputed favorite son, Horus, which the Emperor may actually have needed to win here. That full story is a topic for another time, but the main point here is that losing Sanguinius was devastating. The psychic shock from his tortured death brought to light an entirely new gene seed flaw in the Blood Angels, the Black Rage. And frankly, Sanguinius was just a really enjoyable guy to be around for everybody else. He wasn't only one of Big E's favorite sons, he was everybody's favorite brother, he was the populace's favorite lord, he was revered to a point that, of course, everyone was going to cherish and celebrate his memory. But the question is, what did these celebrations look like? Well, the difficulty of this is that GW is often guilty of naming things that are super important to the world for a certain faction, and then just never expand on it. Pretty much all we officially know about Sanguinala is that it is a holiday. This is the Lexiconum page on the holiday, with a single source attached to its name. All we know for sure is that it is the most important holiday on the imperial calendar. So now comes the fun part. We get to figure out what all this means through speculation. So what do we think Sanguinala is? Well, the main thing that comes to mind is Christmas for many people, but others in the community point to Sanguinala being more Easter-like than Christmas, mainly because we have the name of Christmas in 40k, and that is Candlemas. However, the people arguing for Sanguinala being the parallel to Easter kind of missed the mark in a massive way here, for a massive main reason I'll get to later, but also because we have a much more close parallel to Easter than Sanguinala, and that is the Feast of the Emperor's Ascension. Factually speaking, these camps are both not wrong, per se, because, well, this. But they do forget a massive main thing that could be a giant hint here. It's the name! Sanguinala is very clearly a parallel to the Roman year's end holiday of Saturnalia, which I think gives the very best evidence for what Sanguinala could actually be, even down to what they could have done during the festivities themselves. Yes, that's right! You came here expecting a Holy Warhammer video, but I have tricked you! It is time to learn about the ancient polytheistic history. Well, let's not waste any more time. Saturnalia, as stated before, was the year-end celebration for the Roman god Saturn. Big shock. An agricultural deity which has a lot of additional history we will not get into. This isn't a history channel, as a matter of fact. The important bit for us is, this guy is the Sanguinius parallel. The celebration itself started on December the 17th, and would eventually come to extend a full week into the 23rd of December. All of that week was being filled with celebration in the name of their god. The first kickoff to festivities was always a sacrifice at the Roman Forum. Then following this, some of the more mundane things like private gift giving, a public banquet, and partying that lasted a full week. However, some of the most interesting parts of this holiday were the fact that it completely upended the social norms of Roman culture, ranging from minor things such as gambling being permitted, all the way to masters and those of higher status providing table service to the peasants and slaves, and said people being allowed to act as the masters themselves. This time was seen as a time of unbridled freedom for slaves and freedmen alike, and likely was why the holiday was so revered. On top of this, a king of Saturnalia was elected, who would essentially act as, well, the king for the duration of the celebration. So what can we get from this and apply to Warhammer? Well, I would wager to guess that these celebrations were enforced by the Inquisition, because, grimdark. Celebrations were probably guaranteed and mandatory. The sacrifice part is the easiest and likely happens on every planet. Just take some heretic from the prisons and there you go. The feasting is probably a bit harder and likely depends on how good a person your planetary governor is. The partying is likely mainly replaced with grieving prayer, but I would genuinely wager to guess that some of the freedom does actually translate over. Specifically, probably, hive workers are allowed more time off during this time to honor his name. Most importantly though, given the King of Saturnalia tradition, I would wager that somebody, probably an ecclesiarch of some kind, is ceremonially dressed as Sanguinius. He's probably not giving orders though, he's likely just sitting around. As for when it takes place, it probably takes place in the same dates as Saturnalia because GW is GW, and we could use that to infer when in the year Sanguinius actually died. Finally, going back to the point of Candlemas, because of the proximity of the dates in the real calendar, my guess would be that that holiday and Sanguinala are connected in some way because they take place around the same time of year. It could be that Candlemas is just the name of a specific day of Sanguinala, maybe the end day and could align with the main day of mourning for Sanguinius. Maybe that's when the sacrifice takes place instead of the starting day of Saturnalia. Obviously, all of this is entirely speculation, so I am quite curious to hear what you think of it in the comments, and what your own opinions on the holiday are. And with that, we come to the end of the video, and are closing in on the end of the year. I hope you all enjoyed. We have one more video to do before the year is out, and given the massive importance of next year for Warhammer in general, what with Total War Warhammer 40k, Dawn of War 4, and the entirety of 11th edition all on the horizon, I think it's time to start talking about some of the most important things for the current setting of 40k. Starting with the one who's at fault, in my humble opinion. thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next week. Honor to Sanguinius.